I gotta tell somebody.
This is the best thing I've ever seen.
That. Let's talk about that.
You need this. Listen to this.
Memorable and exciting.
Well, then be less boring.
I'm going to tell everyone. Wait here.
Mighty remarkable, Big Daddy. Remarkable?
Welcome to Remarkable, a podcast for B2B marketers that deconstructs the most iconic moments in film, television, pop culture, and advertising for a single purpose, to give you, the B2B marketer, the same storytelling techniques that the pros use. In each episode, you will learn techniques from Hollywood, Pixar, Marvel, and beyond, from Spielberg's hands to yours, bringing remarkable content ideas to you every single week. I'm Ian Faison, CEO of Caspian Studios. This is Remarkable. And this week, we're talking about marketing lessons from the Settlers of Catan with the help of our special guest, Dialpad CMO Jen Grant. Jen, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to talk about board games.
And I have with me today on camera.
Yes.
This is great radio. I'm rubbing it so that the listeners can hear. I'm opening the...
It's our ASMR.
It's rattling around in there.
Hear all the little pieces.
Klaus Tuber's own. Oh, wow. We could even play it right now here on the call. Jen, why the heck did you pick Settlers of Catan to talk about today?
Yeah. So a couple of reasons. The first, of course, is that I love the game and I play a lot of board games, and Catan is one of my favorites. And when I play with my group of friends, I always win Catan. So it also makes me feel good. So there's always like, we have to play Catan. Jen's going to win again. I was like, yeah. So,
Ooh.
So that's one of the reasons. The other reason, and I think it's why I enjoy the game, is there's a lot of strategy with playing Catan. And so as I was thinking about, what are the learnings, what are the things that you can get out of, something like this game, a lot of it is that strategic thinking, which I really, really enjoy doing, which is also probably why I love playing this game.
And we're going to get way into Catan here in a little bit. But first, tell us about your role as CMO at Dialpad.
Yeah. So I actually I've been a part of Dialpad for many years. I was on the board for 4 or 5 years and then got sucked in to be the CMO for many reasons. I mean, I loved the product. Of course, loved the CEO. My experience on the board was super positive and really just kind of wanted to get in there and, be an operator again. So that's been a wild journey since July, and we're on fire. So we've been growing like crazy. We just announced a couple months ago, 300 million in ARR. So feeling like we're sort of grow. And lots of cool stuff going on with the product too.
Fun fact, I have been to the Dialpad headquarters, which I think is actually like a little bit old. We're probably not the same one anymore. But it was so cool that in the Dialpad offices, there is all these different types of phones, like phone systems from like days past. So Meredith, basically the hallway, like one of the hallways is lined with like every old school type of phone that is like ever you imagine as like sat on a desk. Cool. It's super cool. Because when Dialpad started, and Jen, better than I, it's like replacing the desk on your phone. Like, the internet can replace this desk on your phone and we can listen to the conversation and we can, you can call people directly from the internet and all that sort of stuff. I think I started using the product back probably 8 or 9 years ago. And, this was like just regular internet conversations, which we take for granted now, but it's a cool relic to the past.
It is. Well, and it's a lot of kind of the core where the company started. The guys that founded Dialpad, Craig and Brian, they were a part of Google Voice. So they were, Google acquired a company called Grand Central, developed Google Voice, and they were sort of a part of creating that and then left Google because they really wanted to sell to businesses, and that just wasn't Google's thing at the time. What is this, 12 years ago? Google was not the greatest at selling to enterprises. So they left and created Dialpad, which is this business phone system. And then, of course, that was, 12 years ago. So do much more than that now. We actually bought an AI company in 2018. So we've had an AI platform running underneath all of our communications that we do. And so we've sort of expanded to, it's not just voice, it's also video and texting and email and messaging, all of the different communication types. And you've got AI underneath it. So you have, certainly, any conversation that you have is being transcribed. So you have this real time, the words that people are saying, and we've now got this really quite robust contact center product. So when you call in to, let's say you're wanting support and you call in to a particular, let's say it's Comcast or something like that. If they are using Dialpad, the people you are talking to that are helping you should be able to get proactive help. So the AI is listening to the words you're saying and telling the agent, this is the solution. Make sure to mention this. You're talking too fast. They still are asking a question, slow down, or even, alerting your manager that you may need a little bit of help with this customer because they're particularly upset. So that's kind of I'd say, evolution of where we are today but it definitely at the beginning, it was all about kind of kill the desk phone and reduce the complexity of having to wire, believe it or not, 60% of contact centers are still on-prem. So they're wired, which is like mind-blowing to all of us that have been in cloud for so long.
60%. That is a big number. It's just big. Like, anytime you think, we're so far along, you just forget that.
Not everyone. Yeah. Right. And what's so crazy about that is none of these companies that have on-prem systems can take advantage of AI. They can't take advantage of any of the new technology, the LLMs, they're sort of stuck. So I'm hopeful that will start to whittle away at that number.
Meredith, when was the last time you picked up a desk phone?
It was probably 5 years ago, actually, at my last company.
That is Meredith O'Neill, our amazing producer extraordinaire.
That's
funny.
They had desk phones, yep.
Did you have one on your desk or did you share?
We had like a shared desk and there was just a desk phone there. So
that's funny.
Yeah.
I think mine was probably at my job like 3 jobs ago. And so this was like probably 10 years ago. And I remember because I was in sales and they shipped the phone to me. And I remember when I had to ship it back, when I left the company, I just literally, I took the phone and I just re-put tape on it and sent it back because I never took it out of the box because I was like, why would I ever use this ever? I have a mobile phone that comes with me everywhere.
More fun.
Anyways, shout out to anyone still using a desk phone. I'm sorry. Or I'm happy for you if you like it.
Yeah.
Live your life. Also, quick thing that I think we should touch on before we get to the meat of our conversation. The Dialpad has had some cool marketing over the years. A big out-of-home ad at Oakland International Airport for years and years and years. A bunch of other cool stuff that we can get into. But, Jen, you're on the board and obviously now you're CMO. I'm sure that was always exciting for you.
It was. It definitely was. I think the most exciting was when we did I don't want to say it was a Super Bowl ad, but it was a Super Bowl ad. And what they did, it was so clever. It was a great ad. It was all about the good AI. It was well produced, super entertaining. But what was really cool about it is they did not pay for Super Bowl ad time. They paid for remnant inventory.
Yep.
But they paid for enough like little pockets of remnant inventory that they got included in some of the write-ups of all the Super Bowl ads. And I was like, that was brilliant. Brilliant.
I've heard of a bunch of people doing that or doing regional and paying like, I've heard
pennies on the, like compared to what you would pay.
Literally, Meredith, so Super Bowl ad, whatever, $9 million or whatever per 30 seconds. I've heard of people that spent like $10,000 on a Super Bowl ad that bought like a regional thing or whatever. And then everybody thought that they spent, $9 million. And like you said, it gets wrapped up all in the same thing.
Right. Yeah. Somebody might not know. And there it is. And you get all the love that you wanted without the spend. It was very clever.
Meredith, Tell me about this box sitting in front of me. What is Settlers of Catan?
So, to tell you a little bit about where Settlers of Catan came from, or Settlers of Catan came from, we're going to go back to the 90s to a basement workshop in Darmstadt, Germany, where there's a guy who really hates his job, and to escape sort of those feelings, he has this hobby of making elaborate board games. And so at the time, and this is in 1991, this guy, Klaus Tuber, was working as a dental technician for his family's company. And he was basically just like sick of it. Yes, Ian?
I mean, I have to interject that this sounds like someone who is simultaneously a video game maker and also a dental technician. I feel like
Yes.
Shout out to Klaus.
I know. Surprise, surprise. And so when he was talking about like why he hated his job, he said, I had many problems with the company and the profession. I developed games to escape. This was my own world I created. And he told Forbes, in the beginning, these games were just for me. I always have stories in my head. I would read a book, and if I liked it, I wanted to experience it as a game. And my new Settlers of Catan wasn't his first board game that he created and sold successfully. He created another game called Barbarossa, which was his first one. And that one really took off. So he was already like sort of building a name for himself as a board game developer. But for Settlers of Catan, he had been inspired by the history of Viking settlers in Iceland, which seems like a very specific thing, but I guess he was reading a lot about it at the time and just super curious about it. So in a 2012 documentary called Going Cardboard, he said, when I read about the Vikings, when they discovered Iceland, I thought, what would happen if some explorers come to an island where there's no one? What will they do? So in developing Catan, Klaus said, I felt like I was discovering something rather than inventing it. And he named it Die Siedler von Catan. Catan is the name of the fictional island where players compete to establish the most successful colony. And he released the game in 1995, so he developed it for basically like 4 years. Then the following year, he brought it to American audiences, and he ended up leaving his dental technician job 3 years later in 1998. And he said, when I felt like Catan could feed me and my family. So he just really wanted to take care of his wife and his kids. That's what he told the New Yorker. So he ended up incorporating the company, and it's called Catan GmbH, if you're curious, I guess, in 2002. And that has since been acquired by a company called PAI Partners for $1.4 billion in 2018. So it is one of the most successful games. This guy, Eric Freeman, who is the 2022 United States Catan champion, so now there are championships based on
Jen,
the game.
He's on your throne.
Yeah, you gotta
I gotta get in there.
You gotta get in there. So this guy, Eric Freeman, told the New York Times, I truly believe Klaus created the greatest board game of all time, both complicated and approachable. It combines skill, luck, strategy, and my favorite aspect, the power of persuasion. You can't talk your way into winning a game of chess, but you certainly can in Catan. And so I have questions for you, Jen, too, about the gameplay, but Klaus did sadly pass away in 2023 at 70 years old, but the game, now just called Catan, has sold over 40 million copies, and the franchise is estimated to be worth over $2 billion in revenue. So if I were to take lessons from all of this, is one, make spin-offs of your popular content. So he's got this game, Settlers of Catan, now called Catan. There's now Catan Junior, Catan cards, books, video games. There are special and limited edition versions of the game. There are socks, there are board game tables, and many, many more things. Pete Fenlon, who's the CEO of Mayfair Games, who's sort of like the US maker of the games here, told the New Yorker, our volume of sales will be such that over time, Catan could, in terms of gross revenue, be the biggest game brand in the world, which is wild. Another lesson I would say is build from your passions. So when something is sort of made from curiosity and love, it often has a much more powerful emotional resonance. And I would say those products that are sort of born from personal passion can tap into universal experiences that resonate with a lot of people. And then create a world your audience wants to spend time in. So creating a strong narrative and immersive brand world sort of builds community and loyalty. So those are sort of my takeaways. But Jen, I'm wondering, you know a lot about the gameplay. I haven't played in years, so I'll have to lean on you. But if you were to think about because you said you are known, you have a reputation for being a wonderful player of Catan and that you're going to beat all your friends, and they know going into it. So if you're thinking about like the gameplay and being persuasive and things like that and strategy, like you mentioned, what are some like marketing lessons that we could take from that?
Yeah. Well, the first one, just for, the idea of the negotiation is really funny because I'll just tell
funny.
One funny story is my husband who plays often with us. He'll say, if Jen gets quiet, she's about to win.
You have a tell.
My tell.
That's amazing.
And then he'll also say, if Jen starts to tell me what to do, like because I will do that, I'll tell him how to play his hand. He'll be like, yeah, she's already decided she's not going to win this round.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
So we have all these funny things. But I'll say one of the things that's interesting, and you kind of brought it up with the negotiation and whatnot, but the thing about Catan and other board games, this might come into play too, but you could potentially spend all of your time trying to crush the other players. So there's like longest road. You could try to like get your road so that you cut them off, or you could try not to give them, the sheep that they need or whatever it is. And when you play a game a lot, you're like, oh, I'm going to try this strategy this time, see what happens. And one of the things that I've definitely never seen work is if you focus all your energy on messing with other people, and that you do much better sort of very quietly focusing on your own growth. And so thinking about that from a marketing standpoint, if you step back, way back in my past, I worked at Box, and we would always talk about, do you talk about the competition publicly? Do you? And we did actually do a competitive campaign. We put up a billboard that said Box versus SharePoint, sharing should be simple. And from then on, everyone always said, oh, we should do a billboard, Box versus name something. And later in my career, oh, well, you guys did this, we should do something like that. And the answer is almost always no. The only reason it worked in that particular moment of time is that then, and maybe still now, it's okay to hate on Microsoft. Nobody feels bad for Microsoft at the time. It was Steve Ballmer. No one's like, boo-hoo, Steve Ballmer, nobody. So there isn't like that. There wasn't that community of people like, but I love SharePoint. There just wasn't. And then the second thing that was useful in that moment was that we were totally unknown. And so we decided that there were no other players in this market than Microsoft and Box, which was funny.
Yeah.
But it did raise our profile so that, and we also we literally had one billboard. That was the best part. It was only one. And it was between, at the time, Michael Arrington's house and the TechCrunch office. That was literally the strategy. I was like, we want to get on TechCrunch, so let's put the billboard right there. And so it was on the 101. It also caught all the VCs, so it was like the tech industry went, who's this? What's this? What's this company? And so it did help us in that way in the end. Although I don't think TechCrunch ever wrote about us, at least not at the time, but we did think about it. So that would be my first thing is that, from then on, after I did it that one time, everyone always says, oh, we should do, some sort of campaign where we talk about how we're better than this competitor. And almost always there are people who love whatever competitor you're talking about. And it just doesn't work, or if they're smaller than you are, you're giving them more marketing that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So it's sort of, it's tempting, but it doesn't usually play out well.
Yeah. I mean, I think inherently when you are thinking about other people's strategy, that you're not thinking about your own. I mean, it's the same thing as like, fundraising versus selling, right? Where it's like to your point in that exact thing, right? But I think it's an important distinction that it's like that effort and energy. I like to call it sort of like if you're on the slide, it's like there are industries where there is someone on the slide, like no matter what, whoever it is, IBM or Microsoft or or whoever, they're already going to be on the slide. If it's an enterprise buying committee, like, you know, they're on there. Your whole job is to get your brand on the slide.
Exactly.
So it's like, you know, if you can mirror that in your visuals, but also like, and you need to think about competitives and I know all that other stuff.
Totally.
Not to say that, but to your point, it's like, if you're more focused on advocating your unique positioning rather than, you know, propping up your competitor a little bit, then, you know, you're probably better served for the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And with Catan, I mean, it's like those people are just agents of chaos anyways, where it's like...
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it happens when somebody's like, knows they're going to lose and they're like, I'm just going to blast at everybody else. That's when the negotiation comes into place. And you're like, well, but you don't want to mess with me. You mess with him. He's mean. You don't mess with me.
Well, and I think that's part of the thing that, like, when you're playing in Catan, it's like you still want to get, you know, the longest trainer. You still want to get those things, but it's like, if you become focused on that because you don't want the other person to get it, then you lose sight of other things. And I think that's, you know, where it comes from. And also just, you know, at the end of the day, like, business is business, but at the same time, and I'm not saying all business needs to be fun or whatever, and it is fun to poke fun at your competitors sometime, but like, at the same time, it's like, if you do that, then they're going to do it right back to you. And it's like, is that something that you want to go have conversations about? And if they are doing it to you and you're not doing it to them, you can easily go to your boss and go, yeah, let them go pay for
marketing for us.
Yeah, pay for marketing for us. I mean, you've probably had a million times where people are buying your brand terms on AdWords and you're just like,
all right.
I know it works for some people, but you know, it can be a fraught proposition.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's definitely one of the things. The second thing, which is, I actually think the reason I like the game so much is it's like the game theory of thinking ahead 2, 3, 4 steps ahead. And so you're thinking, how am I going to achieve my goals? But what are they going to do when I do, you know, whatever it is, buy this road or take this, you know, dock or, you know, whatever it is that you want to do. And so it's that, I love that part of the game. I love thinking out ahead. Okay, if we do this, then what are they going to do? And for marketing, I think, you know, we often get caught up in the fun, creative part of marketing. It was like, we made a billboard, you know, we did some ads. It was super cool. And here are MQLs. Yay. But I actually really love the strategy part of it, of thinking about, okay, we're about to launch a particular feature. What's that going to make the competition do? What are they going to, you know, are they going to freak out? Are we kind of catching up to them? And maybe we shouldn't be so loud about it because we should have had this before. You know, all of the different implications of what you do in a market and then how the competition actually responds. And one of the things that, you know, you always see happen is you work so hard and you're like, we're going to launch a new website and we have our new, you know, tagline and our new logo and all of our new colors. And it's so different and it's so, you know, differentiated from the competition. And then you go live with it. And like, not a month later, you're on some other website. Like, that's our tagline. Yeah. I mean, basically they just stole everything we just said. And, you know, it happens every time. And I always have people in my team go to me like, Jen, they totally stole it. We need to send a message to them and tell them that they're stealing our stuff. And I was like, it's just words. There's nothing you can do about it. But it also makes you think like, oh, okay, we may think we're the most amazing marketers in the world and we've finally figured out the right way to connect with customers. But it's always going to change because there's always going to be your competition who's going to come out and do the same thing and they're going to follow. Or maybe you'll see them do something that you wish you'd done. Like, oh, okay, well, we could learn from that. So there's always that, like, there's never like, we're done. There's like thinking ahead, like what are they going to do? So what are we going to do? And how do we continue to have this conversation so that we continue to stay top of mind to the customer? My third thing has to do with more specifics of the game. So I have to explain the game a little more.
Yeah, go for it.
So the thing about Catan at the very beginning of the game is that there are numbers on every square. And so you get to choose 2 places to put your little settlement. And there are 3 numbers for each of those settlements. So right there, you have 6 numbers, and the numbers are on resources. And what's really important, and many people don't think about this, is you want to have all of the resources available to you on numbers that get rolled frequently, but you can't be on only 2 numbers. And it happens by accident sometimes. I've played and I've been like, how did this happen? I only get resources if the number 6 and the number 5 get rolled. And for the rest of the game, I won't get any resources because I'm on these. Somehow I didn't think this through, and these are the only numbers. And maybe I have an 11 and 3, which never get rolled. And it kind of speaks to diversifying tactics. So that, to me, that goes right to marketing. Is oftentimes we'll get CEOs or CFOs, probably more likely, just find that one thing that works really well and put all your budget into the one thing. And you're like, it is never one thing. Never, never, never is it one thing. It's all of the things at the same time, executed perfectly well. So, and so it's similar in Catan. If you want to diversify your role. So every time the dice is rolled, you want to have something that you get from the game. So to me, if you think about that from a marketing perspective, one of my favorite stories to tell is when I was CMO of Looker, I had this wonderful VP of demand gen, Lisa. And, we had this is Looker. So we were doing BI. We had excellent analytics. It was amazing. It was the most sort of numbers-oriented marketing team ever, because we actually had data on everything. And so we would see in a week, like, oh my God, we got all these MQLs this week. There's this lift. It's so amazing. Like, I can see it on, the organic coming to the website went up. Everything went up. Lisa, what did we do this week that caused this to happen? And she would always I'll go check. This happened, I kid you not, 5-6 times until I finally gave up, because it was the same answer every time. She'd say, I'll look into it. And then she'd look into it and she'd say, well, Jen, we're just doing more things. We just did more things this week than we did the week before. It was like, well, we had a webinar and we invited people to this event, and there was a press thing that came out about us, and we put this thing on LinkedIn about our reviews, and it was just more of the things, more activity. So that sort of, to me, that was the lesson from Catan is you've got to diversify. You can't rely on one thing. And in particular, if you think about it from a dice roll, there's some examples of companies that have done really, really well, like videos on YouTube. I think Grammarly is a good example.
Yeah.
They had great videos on YouTube, did really, really well. That may not always work. It worked in that period of time. But there is likely going to be a point in time where it's well, now videos are kind of TikTok-ish, and they're not quite so produced, and they're more like influencers, and so you've got to be doing all of the things so that as you find something that works for a while, it's going to change. So it's the dice is going to roll 5 a whole lot of times, but then the second half of the game, it never rolls at all, and you're like, God, I need something else to do. So anyway, so those are my 3 learnings from Catan. But I could talk about it forever because I love Catan. It's been such a fun game for my family to play.
And we will. Yeah, I wholly agree with everything you just said. I think the idea of doing more stuff is so true. Yeah. And when you're in the spot in Catan, so basically, your settlement is in between, the 12, the 11, and the 6, right?
Yeah.
And it tells you the odds, which is funny. It says odds for dice rolls. It's right there on there. So the 12 is 3%, the 11 is 6%, and the 6 is 14%. So the percent. What did you say?
Is lots. You always want to be on 6 and 8.
Yeah. You want to, exactly. You want 6 and 8s. And so the percentages of those things going in, and when they start hitting, it's a great feeling, right? And then you're just sitting there really waiting for those 12s. You're like, I need some grain, or I need whatever. Yeah. And that's what it feels like, to your point as a marketer, when you sort of overinvest in one area, where I think if you think about marketing like Catan, where you have, hills produce brick, forest produces lumber. You're like, well, events produce blank. And like, okay, small batch events produce in-depth conversations. They might not produce, leads, but they produce in-depth conversations in which the person is happy to come back. And it's like, is that necessarily, is that your 6, or is it more of a 12, right? And each of the thing is, you can't win unless you get enough resources. And like, you can't win just with demand. You can't win just with content. You can't win just with, paid ads. But you do need to figure out, how you can get, roll consistently in those things. And I just agree with you. As I'm sort of just supporting your point, but that just so often it's like, we'll dump more into that. And it's like, yeah, but what if we dump more money into YouTube? What if there's, 17% of our audience is on YouTube and the rest of them are not? Right? Like, so we're just going to keep hitting that group of people. But what about people who don't watch YouTube a ton, or.
Well, and I've worked at a lot of companies that had both the SMB volume play and the enterprise play. And, in that case, like you're saying, even with, as you think about the resources in Catan, early in the game, you need brick and wood. Later in the game, you want wheat and coal. And so there is, like, if you think about it analogous to that, like early in the life of a company, the SMB leads are fast, and they're probably more, Google AdWords, like CPC, LinkedIn content, all of the fast moving kind of activities that get you volume. But like for the long term, like your coal and wheat, which is like the end game, is you got to have coal and wheat because eventually you run out of settlements that you can put on the board. And in order to do that, then you need to be thinking about things like events, or like, a dinner where you have a great conversation, which isn't like, oh, I just got, 150 MQLs and they're converting at this great rate. It's like, well, we just had conversation with 5 people and it moved the sales cycle forward. And maybe in 3 quarters, there'll be, $300K ARR deal, but it's a different kind of strategy, and it's a different sort of way to execute against delivering when you have sort of different kind of tactics that are delivering different stages of the buying cycle. So it's a little bit like that too.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, especially people who over-index on sort of like the demand type stuff, they're just hammering demand. And then they're doing like, like a first touch, last touch model or something like that. And then what happens is their CFO goes, that works. Look at those leads.
Yeah, let's do more of that.
Outbound works. If I send 5,000 emails, I get 3 people that respond and those deals closed. So that works. But it's like the actual, you think that the emails produce leads, but in reality, those emails also produce bad sentiment.
A whole lot of irritated people.
So it's like, there is both of those things that happen at the same time. Just like if you put out a press release that says that, if I said that Caspian Studios now, has the ability to deliver your groceries in under an hour, and then you go to Caspian's website and you go, this doesn't say that there's anything about grocery delivery.
Like, what?
It's like, it's the same sort of thing, right? It's you're just, you're burning that stuff. And so people, I think, are, when they invest in these channels, aka the resources, you need to know what you're trying to produce. And sometimes that's sentiment, sometimes that's happiness, sometimes it's action, sometimes, and like, and sometimes it's all of those things.
Yeah. And one of the things I've seen, so I've been on a couple of boards, and as a CMO on a board, obviously they always are asking me about, the marketing mix and and most of the time, how do we get to the enterprise? And one of the biggest things that I've seen is actually the data, and the way you report against the data can be actually detrimental to going into the enterprise, because it's so easy to go, oh, there are those MQLs coming in with all these, kind of fast sort of tactics that are great for SMBs. Like, how can we possibly stop doing that? Well, can't we get enterprises from these tactics? no,
Yeah.
you can't. You just can't. You have to do these, you have to do events, you have to do things that just feel, to a CFO, feel very expensive and don't have that immediate satisfaction. And it's like, you got to hold out for the big deal. And if you've lined up all the pieces, you'll get there. But I have seen companies where it slows down their growth to the enterprise because they get, at the end of the quarter and they're like, we're just under the number. Okay, marketing, go get us over the number. And so then the marketing team runs and does the only things they can do, which are quick, which is like free trial, click here, like get a thing right now. Here's a 10% off promo.
Discounting,
and every single one of those activities makes you look like an SMB company and not an enterprise company, even from like a brand perspective. Because, you get a large CIO and they go to your website and it's like 10% off free trial. And they're like, oh, that's not the secure, robust platform that I thought I was looking for. So you have to be really careful about overemphasizing, that kind of glorious volume play that obviously works well.
Yeah, I think also with Catan, there's a time to put your chips in and there's a time to not, like you have to save your resources. Because if you're like, well, I have a bunch of lumber right now and oh gosh, I got 7 of these things. I'll just trade 5 of them for brick because I need brick.
Right.
But I think we do that a lot with our marketing budgets where we say like, we say, okay, well, I'll trade this. I was just talking to someone who traded technology for programs. And
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, they're like, I'm stuck. I got to change. I have to invest in this tech. I got to do a favor to this person. They need to borrow budget. And I'm going to cut program spend for this, for this thing. And again, it's hard. This is hard. Budget jujitsu is hard, but it's like, man, you're just, you are not getting that back. You know what I mean? Like probably ever.
Yeah. Right. Once it's invested in the tech, it's, stuck.
Yeah. Super stuck. But also now, and then the thing which always happens in Catan, probably not to you, Jen, which is all of a sudden, now you're out of lumber and then you're waiting on it to roll that 6 and then it just keeps happening where it doesn't roll the 6 and you're like,
and you don't get the roll. Yeah.
You're like, I was playing the
Does
odds.
anyone want to trade a sheep for wood?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then you're trying to do beg, borrow, and steal. Whereas if you are a little bit patient, things can come about.
Yeah, definitely.
One thing I wanted to say, I have 2 marketing lessons, if you'll indulge me.
Yes.
One is Klaus made Catan, and then they made Catan Seafarers, Catan Cities and Knights, Catan Traders and Barbarians, Catan Explorers and Pirates. They got a Game of Thrones one. They got all sorts of stuff, right?
Yep.
Took the exact same framework and tweaked them slightly. And I know that this is obvious, but we see this all the time when we build like a show for someone, where someone will come in and they'll say, let's try to make a show for everyone. They're like, it's a show that CIOs would like, but also CMOs, but also CFOs. And you're like, that doesn't exist. That's the show Stranger Things. You know what I mean? Like, that's not something that there's not a show that they'll pay attention to. And if there is, it's probably virtually impossible to replicate as a brand. You know, maybe they listen to All In Pod, or maybe they listen to New York Times The Daily, but like probably going to be really hard for you. But if you start with a framework and build one and then tweak by persona and say, we're going to build a content series for marketers that has XYZ, and then or an event series, then we're going to tweak the way that we do it because marketers want to do this, but IT people want to do that. Hey, marketers are okay if salespeople are in the room. The IT people, they're pretty sick of that. Let's keep them out. Or what, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so
IT doesn't want to hang out with marketing.
No. Yeah.
Or maybe they do. Maybe we're more fun.
Everyone always says that CIOs are the craziest behind the scenes. This is what they tell me. I don't know.
I think you're probably right.
But I think that that's like such a good way of thinking. It's definitely the way that I think about things, to say, okay, let's build the core thing that we feel really strongly that this thing should exist, that our audience will love it, that we can create positive sentiment. And then let's take that blueprint and let's tweak it and make it a little bit different. And like something very simple, like taking a show that's 50 minutes and making it 5. Like taking an event series and making it a 12-person dinner versus making it a 4-person dinner. Like these are little tweaks, but they make a huge difference. And I think that we just think about things, small batch event. Okay, or whatever.
Yeah, I love that. And I'll add to that. So in addition, you may not know this, but if you ever go on Etsy, you'll realize that not only did Catan itself make all these different versions, but there's a huge crowd of Etsy folks who make the little meeples. So in my set of Catan, I have a little teeny sheep and a little teeny wheat, and it's so much more fun to play the game with the little teeny sheep. And I'll say it fits with marketing, because you have to think about like all of the other people that are supporting your brand and they're building things off of it. So if you have, a platform product and you've got companies that are like, oh yeah, this is an add-on. If you take Salesforce, like there's so much that people do that isn't necessarily Salesforce, a company doing it. It's people that are building on Salesforce. And, there's all of these other ancillary things. And what's funny about Etsy is that I will go and I'll find all the little meeples, all the little funny Catan things, and then I'll look at what other games are they building meeples for, because maybe I want to see if that's an interesting game to play. So it also connects, and I imagine some people come there for some other reason and go, oh yeah, Catan, they have the sheep. So there's a lot of nice like network effects of having more people that are also building on top of your game, which I think can help too.
I actually have 2 more things. Second thing is, marketing takeaway for Catan is when Klaus invented the game, he just wanted to experience it. And I think that it was just something that he felt compelled to do. And like, I know marketing people, get upset about things that's like, I just think that it's the right thing to do and using data and all that stuff. And I always end up sort of railing against data, not to not use data because data is super important, but just to like, there is a certain amount of like, if you feel like something should exist, that you should probably explore that idea in yourself, because I think that like that stuff is worth exploring.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I often say, marketing is a little bit of religion, and it's a little bit of analytics and then a little bit of religion, because at some point you're not going to have the data and you just have to know, like, this is the message that will resonate with people. And this is the creative that speaks it. And like, this is good. And let's launch it, even though, they used to do focus groups all the time, and focus groups are notoriously not accurate. Yep. And so it's like, you could focus group, you could test, you could spend a lot of time doing a lot of things, but eventually you just have to like, this is the right thing. This connects, like, let's get it out in the market. I love that. It's such a great story about how he created the game.
Yeah. He just wanted to explore it. And like, don't we all? And we have.
Yeah.
Final thing here is, I think you can't talk about Catan without talking about complexity and the eventual everyone sitting around the game table and people being bored of the rules. And I think that like, this is like so important for marketers, which is like, you got to know who you're with. And like the perfect example of this, I built a conference years ago. And one of my big things when I built this conference was I felt like the most important, impactful thing for the conference was going to be pairing founders up with like one-on-one with people who are in their industry to give them direct feedback on their business. However, you need to build a conference with a bunch of different speakers because that's how you build conferences. And my hunch was that, that people will like that the most. And after we got the, feedback from everything, of course, that's the thing that they liked the most was the one-to-one feedback and getting matched with someone, and not, the content. Although, the content, the speakers and all that stuff were good, and some of them were better than others, et cetera. And I think you just got to know, are your people trying just start playing, or do they really care about the rules? And like, some people just want to start playing, and some people really want to go through the process. And I think like when you're thinking about your marketing, like giving people a pathway, it's like, and especially if you don't have a freemium product, because then get started is actually very hard. But it's like, do you want to talk to sales and go through this large procurement process and do all this stuff? Or like, do you want to just fast track this thing and get started right now? And like, if you give people a choice, like if you sit down before you play Catan and say, do you just want to start playing and feel how this all feels? Or do you want to sit here and like, I read through the entire rules and teach you how to play?
Like totally. Yeah. Well, and different people, it's funny. My kids always talk about this because one of them, Zoe, wants to read the rules. And she will say, everyone needs to wait while I read the rules to everyone. And it's the other kids are like, can we just, and they'll wait for a minute and they'll be like, oh, can we just go? Let's just play. Let's just do the first round. I'm sure we'll figure it out. And she's like, I really think we need to read the rules.
That is amazing. That's my sister.
But it does speak to, people are just different. Like some people, they want to spend more time. And certainly this is, there's always the, like, how long is the white paper or the content or the type of things? Like some people want like a long white paper that gives them they want to print it out and they want to sit there and read it and highlight it. And some people are like, give me the explainer video. Just like, tell me what it is you do so that I can get it. And then I can decide whether I care.
Tell the exact same story 3 different ways. Yep.
Exactly.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's such a great lesson. And even in Catan, if you go, page 16 of the rules is a game overview that teaches you the entire thing in one page, which as a marketer, I'm like, I can't believe that they don't put this first. It's like, you're wild.
Oh my gosh.
So funny.
Yeah, there are a couple of game designers that need some help in writing instructions.
I couldn't believe that. I was like ahead of this. I was like looking at the rules and I'm like, they give you the entire rules on a 1-pager on slide 16.
Like that would have been the first.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Also, I love that the game overview, the number 1 is so good. The island of Catan lies before you. It's so great. What a great first line. That's awesome. The other thing I would just say is just amazing design. So clear, so cool looking.
Yeah.
Invites you into the world. It's literally a path down the world. On the one I got I got here, we got our Viking guy with his sweet axe and his wife and his kid. His kid looks up to something. It's like got this crazy hat and holding his scythe or whatever that's called. But yeah, no, it's just so cool looking.
Yeah.
And
we have, my daughter for Christmas got me these if you think about, sometimes we call them hotels and houses because
that's what I know.
We just call them settlements and whatever cities. And she got these things on Etsy. They're like, they have beautiful like houses and they're colorful and all this stuff. And she asked me before she bought them, she was like, so, I'm getting this gift for you. What color do you normally play with when you play Catan? And it was so sweet. And my answer was, whatever color is unnoticeable as I sneak up on people and crush them. And I was like, so brown sort of fades in, black fades in. She was like, Mom, now I understand your strategy.
That's so true. That's a great point. It's like how, like a red car always gets pulled over more by the cops.
Exactly. Fade in until you're ready to crush people.
I like that. Probably another good parallel there. Okay, before we get out of here, I would love to know, you've obviously led marketing at a bunch of different types of organizations. How do you think about investing in brand and content?
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of brand. I think, as in fact, we're thinking about it right now at Dialpad, is you have to think about it from kind of the raise all boats standpoint. I think a lot of people, and by a lot of people, I mean a lot of CFOs out there are thinking, well, there's demand gen and, that gets me something very specific. And brand is like this ephemeral, like opaque. I don't know what this thing is. I don't know what's going to get me. And I think it's so critical, especially for tech startups, to be able to articulate who they are and do it in a way and loud enough that, people actually respond to it and remember them.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, your demand gen will work better when you have good branding, when you have, press articles, and maybe you're in an analyst report and they're like, I saw that billboard. We recently, you mentioned the Oakland billboards at the beginning. We recently had a customer tell us, or a champion at a company say, yeah, I did all the research, did the POC, did all the stuff. And then I brought it to my CEO for the final approval. And he had just driven by the Oakland airport and was like, yeah, I've heard of them. Like, they're that big brand that's on the Oakland airport. And he was like, oh my God, I'm so glad you have that, because it made it really easy for me to get this approved. And so it's that like moment where you don't track that in, it doesn't have a campaign code, or, you can't really, is it first touch or last touch? I don't know. It is just like raise all boats, conversion rates improve. And it's often hard to articulate like that was brand. So I like to look for those moments, because the anecdotes a lot of times will tell the story, but I'm a big fan of that kind of branding. Content is, we could probably do a whole nother episode on AI and what it's going to do to content over time, because it is unclear to me what's going to happen. Because it used to be you would write interesting content, like 5 tips for how to, do customer support better. But like now you have some AI tool and like 200 of those could be written in an hour. And so if everybody has all the tools and everybody is writing all this stuff, what is the content that will continue to be useful to people? Which then makes me think about like maybe podcasts, maybe videos, maybe it's like, and we're seeing a huge lift in events, that events are more, there was sort of, obviously there was a pandemic, but there was some like, well, no, it's expensive, not as useful. And now they're like, it may be a really great source of connecting with customers. And so there's a shift going on that, nobody really knows what's going to happen. But when you think this is again, back to Catan, when you think out like 3 steps ahead, if everybody can create all of this content, then maybe none of the content will be useful anymore. The same thing with email. Like if I can have an SDR bot send email and everybody has SDR bots sending emails, well then we're flooded with emails, and sort of we're back to like, is email even an effective channel? Because we've kind of flooded it with all this sort of robot stuff. So it's going to be really interesting what ends up happening. But I do think about things like TikTok and kind of the realness of when people just pick up a phone and talk to it. Like maybe AI will be able to replicate all that stuff, but they'll be too attractive. So like, as long as you're like unattractive and like you look real and like not necessarily perfect, that maybe that's the kind of content in the future that's really going to resonate with people. I think it's going to be fascinating to see what happens in the next, 5 years or so with, all of the content that is created by all these robots.
Yeah. I think that every single thing that, I think that bad content is going to get replaced by AI, and great content is going to be aided by AI. Yeah. And the most important thing is to be original, It's like, 100%. It's always, creativity is the currency of marketing. Like, the more original the idea, the more that it stands out, the more that it reaches other people. It's always been that way. And it always will be that way, whether or not you're using AI or whether or not you're doing it yourself, or if it takes you, 10 years to make it, or if it takes you, an hour to make it. And your distribution strategy matters. And if you're using, the changes in vertical video, the changes that LinkedIn is doing, the changes that, lots of people are doing, like that, building on these rented platforms has been really challenging for years and years. But now you kind of have to do it in certain ways. In other ways, maybe you don't put all your chips in there. But I think that at the end of the day, like, to me, what always matters is what Jen says about marketing next quarter. Like, to me, that's what matters, because, you know, I can ask AI to do a bunch of different stuff, but at the end of the day, like,
Right.
Jen is going to make the decision on how she spends her marketing budget next quarter. She can be helped by AI, and maybe she might use exactly that, and maybe she might tell me that. But to me, your customers no one can predict the future, and AI definitely can't. They can just tell you what happened in the past and then give a likely potential that is the case. And so however people are making decisions now is always going to be valuable and relevant. And the more original way that you can deliver that information in an educational, entertaining, and inspiring way, then the better.
Yeah, 100% agree. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I know. It's like, it's already crazy, you know, build an app in 2 hours and do all this. It's like, it's,
you can launch a website.
Yeah.
All of a sudden it has all the parts.
It's crazy. Jen, wonderful having you on the show. So great talking to you. We need to bring you back to talk, you know, more about content and more about Catan. And for our listeners, you can go to Dialpad, go check out Dialpad. Go give a nudge to your IT team. I'm sure they're ready to get started. You know, Dialpad AI, just so much cool stuff that you're doing. Go to dialpad.com. Any final thoughts? Anything to plug?
Yeah, I think, you know, we'd love for people to check out Dialpad. I think there's a lot that we're doing that's interesting. So hopefully you'll enjoy our marketing. We're redoing our brand and our website and all sorts of cool stuff over the next couple of months. So we're hoping people notice and get to know us better, and we get a bunch more companies looking for good communication platforms that they can communicate with customers on.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Jen, and take care. Well, that's it for today. I hope you got some good ideas for your B2B content. Thank you for listening to Remarkable. I'm Ian Faison, CEO of Caspian Studios. Remarkable is created by the team at Caspian Studios, B2B podcast as a service. Caspian also creates fiction series for B2B companies, so if you want a business thriller, you can learn more at caspianstudios.com. Hollywood-style storytelling for B2B. And in today's episode, you heard from myself, Ian Faison, and Meredith O'Neill, senior producer here at Caspian Studios. Remarkable was produced this week by Meredith O'Neill, mixed by Scott Goodrich, and our theme song is Solomon by Falak. Be remarkable and rise above the noise.